And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, April 25th. And it is indeed the last show that I will be hosting here on the GSMC Sports Network. We have made it to the finish line. This will be it. So let's enjoy the ride one last time. So before I get into what we will discuss today, just want to remind you guys one final time, well, second to last time, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So, let's get into what we're going to discuss today for the final time. So, we're going to start off the show similar to what I did yesterday. We'll cover the first round, we'll cover the first half of the first round. We'll go through each pick. I'll give you my thoughts on what each team did. Then we will do the same thing in the second part of the show. We'll go through the second half of the first round. Third part of the show, we'll talk about who is still available and what positions teams need to still address in the later rounds here as we move along. Tonight is night 2 of the draft, rounds 2 through 3. We will also get into talking about the NBA action from last night, a few games, and then we'll take a look at the games that will be played tonight. And then in the final part of the show, I will give you predictions for the upcoming NFL season, as well as just kind of taking a look back on what's happened over the last couple of years since I started hosting shows at GSMC. So, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the NFL draft. The first half of picks. So, the first overall pick in the draft was Cam Ward, which I'm not surprised by. We knew that was going to happen. It's been building up to this point, and that is indeed what the Titans did. They took their quarterback, and he is going to be the guy moving forward. And, Titan fans are hoping that he's the right guy. He is their guy because obviously they had Will Levis, and, he was not great last year. And we'll put it nicely. I saw a post on social media that said the end of an era, and it was just all of the memes of Will Levis from last year. So, but yeah, they're hoping that Cam Ward is the guy. The Titans, they also brought in another veteran receiver. They got Tyler Lockett. You got Calvin Ridley there. So, let's see what Cam Ward can do. This is not a gauntlet of a division that he is going into. The Texans are the best team, but this division is not like some of the other divisions. Like, it's not like one of the North divisions. It's not like the NFC East, which has now become a gauntlet. But, yeah, let's see what Cam Ward can do. You got an offensive-minded head coach there. So, yeah, the Titans, they took Cam Ward. We weren't surprised by that. But we were off and running. We said that the draft is now really going to start once we get to the Browns pick. And right off the bat, we had a trade between the Browns and the Jaguars. The Jaguars moved up. This was the trade, the specifics of the trade. So the Browns, they traded the number 2 overall pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick to the Jaguars for the 5th overall pick. The Browns are getting a 2nd-round pick, which is the 36th pick in the draft. So they got 2 picks coming up when we resume the draft tonight. A 4th-round pick, which is pick number 126, and then next year's 1st-round pick from the Jaguars. So I really liked that for the Browns. And, it's no guarantee that the Jaguars are going to be, good next year. So that could potentially be a high pick. So the Jaguars went in and did that, and they ended up trading, they traded the pick. They traded for the number 2 pick, and they got Travis Hunter. So what they have done now is they've added Travis Hunter to a receiving core that also includes Brian Thomas Jr., who is coming off of a great rookie season. And Liam Cohen is now there, an offensive-minded guy. they're trying to surround Trevor Lawrence with as much talent as possible. And they got arguably the best player in the draft, if not he's definitely one of the top players in the draft. And Travis Hunter, let's see what they do with him. Are they going to have him play both positions, corner and receiver? But, now he's opposite of Brian Thomas Jr. So, I do like that for the Jags. They might have given up a lot to get him. I don't know what would have happened, had this trade not have gone down. Were there other teams that were looking to move up? Would the Browns have maybe traded that pick to somebody else? But I do like this more so for the Browns just because, you're getting a first rounder for next year from the Jags. So that was the number 2 pick. Then at number 3, again, we figured this was going to happen. But again, you weren't sure. Giants ended up taking Abdul Carter from Penn State. And you got to be very excited about the Giants defense. They also picked up Kayvon Thibodeau's 5th-year option. So you got Abdul Carter. You pair him up with Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence. You got Kayvon Thibodeau. They improved the secondary in the offseason. This defense on paper looks pretty good. So, and the Giants, along with the offensive line, they've been searching for that pass rush again. And last year, they went out and they traded for Brian Burns. Dexter Lawrence has really come along and become a solid player. Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't really lived up to the hype. But now you bring in Abdul Carter, and, there are some tough teams in this division. And you got to be able to get after the quarterback. Now, the quarterbacks that are in the division are also mobile. But Abdul Carter can, he's a versatile player. He could play linebacker. He could rush the passer off the edge. I know there's a bit of an injury concern with him, but this is arguably the best player in the draft. And the Giants, this was a home run pick. This was a no-brainer pick, but I was happy with that. I know I said I wanted Travis Hunter, but I was happy with the Abdul Carter pick. The Patriots took Will Campbell with the 4th pick. I was thinking maybe they could trade down, but they ended up not doing that. They took Will Campbell, who was arguably the best tackle in this draft, to protect Drake May. So I really don't have any problems with that. The Browns, they ended up taking a pass rusher. They took Mason Graham from Michigan, defensive lineman out of Michigan. That was a good pick. Obviously people were talking about, if they went and had Abdul Carter and had him line up opposite of Myles Garrett. That didn't happen, but hey, I'm fine with that pick. Ashton Genty ended up going to the Raiders, so I was right on that. So I started off 6 for 6. But obviously, the Jaguars and the Browns made a trade, so it wasn't exact, but I started off 6 for 6 when comparing it to my mock draft. But yeah, the Raiders, they were not good at running the football last year. One of the top players in this draft, the best running back in this draft, and the Raiders are going to want to run the football. So that was a good pick. The Jets took the smart approach. I had them taking Tyler Warren out of Michigan, out of Penn State, the tight end, but they ended up going with Armand Membo, which I don't have a problem with. You have him line up opposite of Olu Fashanu. Jets got 2 solid tackles now on the line. And, that's one of the things you have to do to build a foundation with this team is the offensive line. And, let's see if that pans out. I did have the Panthers taking Tetairoa McMillan, and they indeed did that. He was, the second receiver, I guess, technically taken off the board. But I figured, look, the Panthers need another weapon. You have Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, Jalen Colker. They needed another receiver, and they went out and got that. Bryce Young looked a lot better after he came back in from his benching. So hopefully, with now another weapon added to that offense, he can maybe take that next step. Anthony in the chat, what's going on? He said, what is your grade for my Dolphins? Did you like that? We drafted Kenneth Grant at 13, or did you feel we should have traded down and could have gotten him in the mid-teens, early 20s? I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Look, defense is a weakness for the Dolphins. They need to improve that. I actually had him going to, I think I had him going to the Bengals. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Maybe they could have traded down. I mean, there's a lot of things the Dolphins could have did. Maybe they could have addressed the offensive line. Um, are you surprised that Colston Loveland was drafted before Tyler Warren? I guess a little bit, just because I think a lot of people had Warren going ahead of him. But uh, yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. But the Saints. So I had Shador Sanders going to the Saints. That did not happen. They ended up taking Calvin Banks Jr., tackle from Texas. I don't have a problem with that. Um, build better protection on the offensive line. So that was their pick. Colston Loveland, yeah, from Michigan. The tight end went to the Bears. Another weapon for Caleb Williams. I would have loved to have seen the Bears maybe trade up and get Genty, but that didn't happen. The Bears, I think, will take a running back at some point in the draft, maybe in the second round. But yeah, I'm fine with that. Again, another weapon for Caleb Williams. The 49ers took Mikael Williams from Georgia, another pass rusher, line up opposite of Nick Bosa. The 49ers, they kind of have to revamp that defense in this draft because they did lose some guys in free agency, let guys go. So, yeah, didn't have a problem with that. Some people think the Cowboys kind of reached on their pick, taking Tyler Booker out of Alabama, guard. I had them taking a playmaker. I thought they could have maybe used one there, but maybe they were going to add one later in the draft. But look, Zach Martin retired. They needed to replace him, so they replaced him with Tyler Booker. We get to Kenneth Grant, defensive lineman from Michigan. Like I said, the Dolphins' defense was a weakness, so I didn't have a problem with that. The camera is acting up, which it's we knew this was going to happen. Final show, but I feel like it's going to subside, and there it goes. It subsided. Tyler Warren did go to the Colts, so that was I thought that was a good pick. They were looking to draft a tight end. It was either going to be him or Loveland, and they ended up getting Tyler Warren. So I got to see how the quarterback play is. Anthony says your screen is glitching. Yes, I am aware of that. It happens, at least once, almost every show or every other show. But if it continues, we'll have to we'll fix it. But sometimes it'll stop. But yeah, so that was the Colts pick. Jalen Walker, taken by the Falcons, linebacker out of Georgia. Don't have a problem with that. Falcons, their weakness was defense last year, so I don't have a problem with that. Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss was taken by the Cardinals. Again, defense was a weakness. They added Josh Sweat, so they're trying to improve that defense. Shamar Stewart was taken by the Bengals, an edge rusher out of Texas A&M. Bengals need to go defensive heavy in this draft. They have to do that, and so far they have done that. And then finally, the last non-playoff team, the Seahawks took interior O-line Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Offensive line was a weakness last year. They got to protect Sam Darnold. So yeah, that's the first 18 picks. That's all the non-playoff teams. A non-playoff team does make another pick when we get into the second part of the show. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, though. What were your surprises? What picks did you not like? What picks did you like? Let me know in the comments. Anthony also said a lot of people said it was a mistake that the Patriots drafted Will Campbell because they feel Campbell is a guard in the NFL and it's too high to draft the guard. Yeah, no, my friends, when I was out with my friends last night, they were saying that eventually, he's going to have to maybe move to guard. So, we'll see what happens there. But, either way, they address the offensive line position, and if he's a good player, they're going to need him to protect their franchise in Drake May. So I also said maybe the Patriots could have traded down, but that did not happen. So we are going to take our first break of the show now, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the second half of picks in round one of the NFL draft, and I'll give you my thoughts on them when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to take a look at the second half of the first round of the NFL Draft. So, went through all the non-playoff teams. So now let's get into the playoff teams. Now, the first pick here, it's the 19th pick, the Buccaneers. I was a little surprised by this pick. They took Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. I was definitely surprised by that because I felt like defense was probably something that they would address. There's probably will still address it. But I thought receiver, they were kind of set. I mean, they brought back Chris Godwin. You got Mike Evans and, Jalen McMillan. He stepped up when they needed him to after Chris Godwin got hurt. So I thought they were kind of set there. But I guess, Chris Godwin's not all the way back from his injury. And they want to have an insurance policy. And, obviously him and Mike Evans are getting older. So, you do want to have, some younger guys there. But, yeah, they went and did that. They went and drafted another receiver. They give Baker Mayfield another playmaker. He finished with over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns on 81 receptions his final year at Ohio State. I'm not really going to complain. It gives Baker Mayfield another weapon. But, again, I felt like they could have addressed defense with that pick. The Broncos did address defense with their pick. They took Jahdae Barron, a corner from Texas. So now he lines up opposite of Patrick Surtain. So you know what? I had the Broncos taking a running back. They didn't do that, but they could very well do that later in this draft. But they already, have a good defense, and they added to it by adding Barron. So I don't really have any complaints there. Then the Steelers picked. And, in my mock draft, I had them taking Jackson Dart. But Jackson Dart does get taken. We're going to get to it. But I didn't feel good about it after I did the mock draft. I said, are the Steelers going to do that? And then we were in when we were in our production meeting yesterday, we were talking about it. And Matt, who is a Steelers fan, who hosts the football podcast, was saying how, that the national media talks about, the Steelers taking a quarterback. But, the local beat writers are saying, hey, they're going to take a defensive lineman. And I believe he had them taking the exact player that they ended up taking, and that was Derek Harmon, a defensive lineman out of Oregon. Now, I feel like maybe the Steelers could have also addressed the secondary. Maybe they could have used a corner. But, yeah, they ended up taking a defensive lineman. Look, they got guys getting older on the defense. Cam Hayward's getting older, so I don't think it's a bad pick. But again, I would have maybe, for them, maybe would have addressed the, position in the secondary, but that's just me. But I don't really have any complaints with that pick. The next two picks I really like. So the Chargers, they took Omarion Hampton from North Carolina. They signed Najee Harris in the offseason. Last year they had J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Both of those guys are no longer on the team. J.K. was a free agent now, and they cut Gus Edwards. But you bring in Najee, and now you bring in Omarion Hampton. And he's coming off of a year. He had 1,660 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns in North Carolina. And now you go into a system where they love to run the football. And they could really have a balanced attack, with Justin Herbert now and, with that passing game, which I think Herbert's going to be even better, now year 2 in the system. With Lad McConkey, they brought back Mike Williams. I've said it all along. I'll say it one more time. Keenan Allen, go back to the Chargers. Complete it. Complete the return for both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen if he wants to go back there, because he's still out there. But with that duo now of Hampton and Najee Harris, I think that's a better running back room than what they had last year. J.K. Dobbins did a nice job, but there's the injury history, and he did get hurt last year. So yeah, I like that for the Chargers. I would have liked to have seen them draft who the Packers ended up taking, or maybe take a receiver, and that could still happen. But the Packers, they did something that they have not done since 2002. They took a wide receiver. They took a wide receiver in the first round. And I actually did have them taking a receiver, but I had them taking Luther Burden. I had them taking him, but they ended up because I had Matthew Golden going elsewhere. I think I had it. Did I have him going to? I think I had him going to Dallas. Let me just look quickly at my my mock draft. So I had him going to. Oh no, I had Dallas taking Emeka Egbuka. I had Matthew Golden going to the Chargers. Yeah, so he ends up going to the Packers. Look, the Packers needed a number 1 wide receiver. We were waiting for their other receivers to, kind of step up. Someone take that next step. Whether it was Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, but no one ever really did. And when you go back and you watch the playoff game against the Eagles, also guys got hurt. A lot of guys got hurt in that game. But they need another threat to help Jordan Love. And, they were very good at running the football with Josh Jacobs, but they need to have a balanced offense. And you hope that Matthew Golden steps in and he kind of transforms that wide receiver room. Because they're going to be without Christian Watson to start the year. But, if this guy could take a stronghold on that wide receiver 1 role, that's going to make all the other receivers around it better. So I did like that pick for the Packers. And I was a little surprised because, again, they hadn't taken a receiver in the first round in a long time. But they did it. And how fitting is it, because the draft is being done at Lambeau Field. The Vikings, they ended up taking Donovan Jackson, interior offensive lineman from Ohio State. Look, that was a problem for the Vikings last year, and you saw that on national TV twice in 2 weeks. With the Vikings losing to the Lions and the Rams. The offensive line really struggled, and they have addressed that in the offseason, signing some guys. But yeah, this is good. Add more depth to that offensive line. So I don't have a problem with that. And that was one of the Vikings' biggest weaknesses. And now you're going to have J.J. McCarthy being behind that line. You want to make sure that he is protected. All right, so now we get to the 25th pick. So that was originally going to be the Texans' pick, but the Giants ended up trading back into the first round. And you knew right then and there they're going to take a quarterback. And I was saying, as the draft was going last night, I'm like, as Shedeur Sanders was falling, I'm like, you know what? I think that the Giants should trade back in. And sure enough, they did. So the Texans traded the 25th pick to the Giants for the 34th overall pick, which is in the second round. The 99th pick, which is a third rounder, and a 2026 third round pick. So the Giants, they were on the clock. And I said, yeah, I would take Shedeur Sanders, right? But if you saw Joe Shane's son's social media, he posted something about Jackson Dart. So it was like a toss-up. It was like, it definitely could be one of the two. I said I'd take Shedeur, but the Giants ended up taking Jackson Dart. Another Ole Miss guy, just like Eli. Although the Giants didn't draft Eli, but they traded for him, and obviously we know what happened after that. The Phillip Rivers Eli swap. But yeah, they took Jackson Dart, and we're gonna get into it more so in the next segment. But after that, well, as we were moving along in the draft, and once we got to the the playoff teams, it was like once we got past the Steelers, we're like, wow, Shedeur Sanders might not even get taken in the first round, and that's what ended up happening. Giants took Jackson Dart. I'm happy because the Giants got best player available and they addressed the quarterback position. And Jackson Dart isn't going to start. We went from the Giants having a quarterback room of Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Tommy DeVito to now Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Jackson Dart. I mean, I think that's good. Now, I haven't really gotten a chance to. I'll get to hear what the Sports Talk Radio has to say about it here in the Northeast Giants area. We'll hear, but it seems like not everybody is thrilled with the pick. But I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm like oh man, we got the best quarterback ever. No, but they addressed the quarterback position, and they got best player available. So I think the Giants did a good job last night, in my opinion. Obviously, now we got to see what happens when Jackson Dart takes the field. How does he look? But we're not going to have to worry just yet because he's going to be sitting. He's going to sit behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. He's going to get to learn. And then when he's ready, he'll take over, and hopefully he ends up being the guy. But looking at his stats from last year, 29 touchdowns, 6 picks, 4,200 yards passing. Let's hope he's the guy. Let's hope that Brian Dable and Joe Shane are still around and Brian Dable can develop him and he could be the quarterback of the future for the Giants. So to go through the last several picks here. So the Falcons, they actually traded back into the first round with the Rams. So there was another trade. Rams kind of fleeced, though. The Rams, they traded the 26th pick and a third-round pick to the Falcons for a second, a seventh-round pick, and a first-rounder next year. So that was a good trade for the Rams. I liked that for them. But yeah, the Falcons traded back in and they took another defensive player. They took James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. Again, defense was an issue for the Falcons last year. So, they addressed that with their first 2 picks. And then the Ravens, they got Malachi Starks, safety. I had them taking a corner, I believe, in my mock draft. So, look, secondary was a weakness for them last year, so I don't have a problem with that. The Lions took Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, a defensive lineman. I don't have a problem with that. I want to maybe adjust the, maybe linebacker, corner, but yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Commanders, they drafted Josh Connerly Jr., the tackle out of Oregon. Improve that offensive line. They traded for Laramie Tunsil. Now you have him to line up opposite of Laramie Tunsil. Got to protect your young quarterback. So I don't have a problem with that. The Bills took Maxwell Hairston, a corner out of Kentucky. To improve the defense, I don't have a problem with that. The Eagles and the Chiefs actually swapped picks. The Eagles moved up one spot. They took Jahad Campbell from Alabama, linebacker. He joins a loaded defense. I said the Eagles should go edge rusher, but I think they will at some point. And then the Chiefs took a tackle. They took Ohio State tackle Josh Simmons. Tackles were a weakness in that Super Bowl, so don't have a problem with that. But that's the first round. Rounds 2 through 3 are tonight. Let me know what you guys think, though, about how the first round went. What were your thoughts on it? What were some of your surprises overall? So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys one final time here as the host of the GSMC Sports Podcast. To tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also the other way to help out the show is by going to the link At the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about who is still available and what can teams still address in the final 6 rounds of the draft. We still got a long way to go, but we will get into all of that when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about what teams still need to, what teams, I don't even know what I'm saying. What do teams still have to address in the draft? What positions do they have to address as we move along here? And who are the best players available still? So I do want to talk about Shedeur Sanders once more. So, I apologize for me glitching out. The screen glitched out today. I'm glitching out. Look, it's the last day. You never know what to expect. But anyways, yeah, Shedeur Sanders ended up not being a first-round pick. And what was interesting is my friends were sending it in our group chat is how the betting odds changed. And it went from Shedeur Sanders was going to be the number 2 pick to being or the second quarterback taken off the board to now he was potentially going to be the 3rd pick. Jackson Dart's odds skyrocketed. So something changed within the last 24 to 48 hours, and ultimately the Giants took Jackson Dart instead of Shedeur Sanders. And look, we'll see how it pans out. I liked what the Giants did because, again, they addressed the quarterback position. But time will tell if they made the right move or not. But Shedeur Sanders, once he fell out of the top 10, which I had the Saints picking him, but they ended up taking a tackle. And then you were like, all right, maybe the Steelers are going to take him. And then they didn't. Then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, unless someone trades back in, whether it's the Giants or it's the Browns, he's going to be a second-round pick. And, all along I thought, Shedeur Sanders was going to be the second quarterback. But he's not only is he not going to be the second quarterback, he's a second-round pick now. Who knows when he's going to be taken? Now, the Browns have 2 of the first 3 picks in the second round. That's a team that still needs to address the quarterback position. Because, yes, you traded for Kenny Pickett, you signed Joe Flacco, but those are not the long-term answers. Odds are Shedeur Sanders is going to end up on the Browns. I think that's going to happen. Now, if it doesn't, who knows who's going to take him? My friends and I were, the Raiders maybe, they take him. He sits behind Geno for a couple years. Maybe I heard the Rams. The Rams, I think, would be a great spot for him. He sits behind Stafford, and then he takes over. I would like those scenarios for him. Cleveland, I mean, you do have Joe Flacco there, so Joe Flacco could bring him along. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, quarterback is something the Browns still have to address. Maybe they're going to add another another playmaker at some point, whether it's a running back or a receiver. You know, could they take an edge rusher to line up opposite of Myles Garrett? Could. But Shedeur Sanders will go in the second round tonight. And if he doesn't, then I don't know what to say. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how things changed. I mean, for months, we're talking about him being either the first or the second quarterback taken. Now he's the third. And he's going to be a second-round pick. So, yeah. But some of the other players that are available, you have Mike Green out of Marshall. Last year, 17 sacks. Taking a look at who's picking, I mean, you got the Browns, like I said. Well, actually, no. They're picking 36, so they have 2 of the first 4 picks in the second round. They got the 4th pick in the second round. So you got the Browns, the Texans, the Titans, the Browns, and the Raiders again, the Patriots. Bears a couple of times. I mean, maybe he ends up on the Bears, and he lines up opposite of Montez Sweat. But maybe the Raiders take him and have him line up opposite of Max Crosby. Luther Burden III. I mean, could it be the Texans? Texans need another receiver. Raiders need a receiver. Patriots could use another receiver maybe. Will Johnson is also still available. I had him going to the 49ers. And that was what, the 13th pick? I mean, I think he's definitely going to go within the first. I think if the Texans took him, you know, you have him line up opposite of Derek Stingley. I think that would be that'd be a good move for the Texans. But yeah, he's going to go within the first, few picks. Taking a look at other people that are still available. Trey Amos, corner out of Ole Miss. Benjamin Morrison, another corner, Notre Dame. A lot of corners. You're going to see a lot of corners flying off the board tonight. Nick Amenwari from South Carolina. Safety. Siobhan Revel Jr. from East Carolina. Nick Scourton from Texas A&M, an edge rusher. Yeah, no, there's a lot of defensive players I see. But looking at what everybody needs to address. The Texans, like I said, they could use maybe another receiver. But again, I mean, if they went in and they got Will Johnson, I don't have a problem with that. The Browns, quarterback. So I think with one of these 2 picks, I think they should end up with Shedeur Sanders. And if not, then I don't know where he's going to be taken. But yeah, I could see quarterback, maybe another playmaker, like I said, maybe, another pass rusher. The Titans, maybe an offensive lineman. Maybe. They can add to the defense. The Raiders, I think, either defense or playmaker, same thing. I mean, you got Gentry, so maybe they go defense with their second pick. The Patriots, I could see going playmaker. I mean, you address the offensive line. They did sign a lot of free agents in the offseason for the defense, so I could see them taking a receiver with their next pick. Listen, the Bears, they got 2 picks in the second round. I mean, I think they go running back. Well, let's see. What running backs are available? Still available. You got Travion Henderson. You got Quinshon Junkins. So the 2 Ohio State running backs. You got Tuden from Virginia Tech. Caleb Johnson from Iowa. Yeah, I mean, I could see the Bears addressing the running back position, maybe. but maybe they look to take an offensive lineman. Let's see. Taking a look at the tackles. You got the other. Or actually, no. That's tight end. I thought I hit a. Yeah. So there's Amari Jones Jr. from LSU. Look, the Bears' offensive line was not great last year, but they did address it in free agency. Maybe they want to continue to address it in the draft. But yeah, I could definitely see them going another playmaker possibly. But I think one of these picks will probably be defense. The Saints, I don't really know. I guess maybe the defensive side of the ball. I mean, maybe if like I could see them taking a corner because they did trade Marshawn Lattimore at the trade deadline last year, so maybe they addressed the corner position. But they could go best player available because they have a lot of holes. The Jets, I'm curious to see what they do. Maybe they add another weapon, or maybe they go defense. 49ers, I think this could be another defensive pick, maybe. Or maybe they go address the offensive line. The Cowboys, I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do. I mean, because again, I said playmaker, they took a guard. I think running back. I feel like they should address. I mean, again, Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams going into the year, I don't know. The Colts, they could address maybe the defensive side of the ball here, maybe take someone for the secondary. They did sign a couple of guys for the secondary, and maybe they go, someone on defense. Rams pick is going to be interesting. Maybe they, address corner, the corner, linebacker, defensive line. For the Cardinals, I mean, maybe they still go defense. Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss was their first pick. The Dolphins, I feel like they should continue going all defense. Bengals, definitely all defense. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting what happens tonight. Seahawks got a couple of second-round picks. Broncos, let's see what they do. Maybe they take a running back. I think Bucks go defense with this pick. If they go offense again, I'd be a little surprised. Because I thought their first pick was definitely going to be defense. And not only was it not defense, it was a receiver, which I felt like they were, fine at receiver. Packers, I could see maybe drafting a corner with Jair Alexander on the trade block. The Chargers, maybe they add another receiver. Maybe. Or maybe they go defense. Bills got a couple of second-round picks. Maybe one of them is going to be offensive line. Panthers, I think, could be defense. Texans pick again. Maybe they take a receiver. The Ravens, I think, should add another defensive back. Lions maybe go defense again. Commanders, defense. Chiefs is going to be interesting. What are they going to do with their second-round pick? Maybe they trade out. I don't know. Offensive line, pass rusher. Looking at their needs: defensive line, corner, running back, interior offensive line, edge rusher. So yeah, maybe. Eagles, I said maybe could use another edge rusher. So they took Jahad Campbell. But, you did lose some guys on the defensive line, so I think they're going to want to revamp that. So I could see them going with another defensive pick. Or maybe they go with someone in the secondary. But, yeah, there's a lot of defensive backs available. So, we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about the players that are still available. Who do you see getting drafted tonight and to where? Let me know in the comments. this is rounds 2 through 3 are tonight, and then 4 through 7 is on Saturday. So we got a long way to go. We're definitely going to see more trades. I mean, it's amazing how fast things got started with the Browns immediately trading the second pick. But we said that all along. We were like, that's when the draft is really going to start, and it started. It started in a big way. And now Trevor Lawrence has 2 studs at receiver, and one of them could play corner. But yeah, no, it was. As a Giant fan, I was happy with what they did. But from what I'm seeing, there are a lot of people that are not happy with what they did. So I want to, get to see their reactions. But yeah, we'll see where Shedeur Sanders ends up tonight. I think it's going to be Cleveland, but if not, I mean, who knows? And I think if he ended up with the Raiders or he ends up with the Rams or something, I mean, I think that would be a good spot. Those would be good spots for him. But we'll find out. We'll find out. That was definitely one of the biggest surprises, just the fact that he wasn't taken in the first round, and that he really slid. So, but also people said this isn't a loaded quarterback class. Teams weren't looking to take a quarterback just to take a quarterback. The Giants, I think, did the smart thing trading back in. They took Jackson Dart. Now, however you feel about Jackson Dart, that's up to you. It's a wait-and-see approach. Let's see what he looks like. Obviously, I'll look and watch his highlights at Ole Miss. There is talent there, and, he's not going to start right away. So, but anyways, we are going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we'll take a break from football. We'll talk about the NBA. We'll talk about what happened last night in the NBA playoffs, what games are on tonight. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we're going to take a little bit of a break from football. We'll talk about what happened in the NBA last night. So we had a few games, some crazy finishes, but we'll start off with the Knicks. So the Knicks really needs to win last night. I was saying that all along. If they ended up losing the game, it would have been tough. But early on, the Knicks definitely came out with a different kind of energy. 4 out of the 5 starters had 20-plus points last night, which I think was huge, because I think that was one of the biggest complaints after Game 2 was just the lack of involvement from some of the other players. But also guys just missed open shots and just disappeared. Like Karl Anthony Towns, he had 10 points in Game 2. He finished with, 31 last night? I think he had like 11 points in the first quarter. Or at least he had more than what he had in Game 2. But, yeah, Karl Anthony Towns, he finished with 31 points. He was solid last night. OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. OG finished with 22. Bridges finished with 20. And Jalen Brunson finished with 30 points. And he went 11 of 13 from the free throw line, 9 of 20 from the field. But, yes, this was a gutsy win. The Pistons would not go away. Cade Cunningham finished with a double-double. Had 24 points, 11 assists, 7 rebounds. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 24 points. Jalen Duren had 16. Dennis Schroeder, 18 points off the bench, so he continues to produce. And Malik Beasley had 12. But there was an interesting moment in the game at the very end where Brunson was shooting free throws, and there was no time left on the clock, essentially. So he purposely missed the second free throw. The buzzer sounded, and we thought, all right, the game's over. No, game was not over. The Pistons still had an opportunity with, I think it was like with 0.5 of a second left. So they inbounded the pass, and it, went out of bounds, and the Knicks got the ball anyways. But still, like, it was very odd how the game did not end after Brunson intentionally missed the free throw. But yeah, I mean, it was still a 2-point game. Like the Pistons, they I don't know why I had Timberwolves on the mind, but anyway, well, I guess because they play tonight. But yeah, no, the Pistons had an opportunity, even though it was going to be virtually impossible, and they ended up losing. So the Knicks take a 2-1 lead. But yeah, this was a much better showing. There was pressure on the Knicks to get it done, and they delivered. But this Pistons team is very tough. And I would like to see... Now, look, the starters, they stepped up. It wasn't just Brunson. You got contributions from Cat, OG, Mikal Bridges. Josh Hart did his thing. But you would definitely like to see someone off the bench, do something like Cam Payne did in Game 1. But, because the Pistons are consistently getting contributions from players off the bench. Again, Dennis Schroeder has been a problem. He had 18 points again. He had 20 in Game 2. And that's something that, beyond this year, the Knicks have to address their bench. They have to get a better bench. And that's been talked about all year. But, look, hopefully this continues. You got to like what you saw. Karl Anthony Towns bounced back after, a rough Game 2, where, again, only 10 points. They're still missing, some open shots, but obviously that's going to happen. The Pistons missed open shots too last night. Yeah, I mean, this series is by no means over. Little Caesars Arena, it was rocking last night. And they were all over Brunson every time he was at the free throw line, because a lot of people have been complaining about his flopping. So, but yeah, gutsy win for the Knicks. So they go up 2-1. Now let's talk about the Grizzlies and the Thunder, shall we? So the Grizzlies were up by a lot. All right, they played really well in the first half. They were up 77 to 51 in the first half, if my math is correct. Right, 77 to 51. Yes, 77 to 51. And you thought, all right, maybe they're going to, steal a game here. And then the Thunder proceeded to outscore the Grizzlies in the second half. 63 to 31. And they ended up winning 114 to 108. So after the Grizzlies put up, 77 in the first half, they put up 31 in the second half. And now they're down 3-0. And the series, like I said, it's over. Now it's really over. Now, John Moran also got hurt in this game, so that kind of played a role. But, I mean, yeah, so he exited, went to the locker room, and yeah, he ended up not returning. Hip injury. This was in the second quarter. So that definitely played a role. I mean, had he not have gotten hurt, then maybe, they probably hang on and still win. Because he had 15 points. He was on his way to having a really good game, but yeah, he ended up leaving, not returning, and that played a role in the Grizzlies collapsing and losing the game. Desmond Bane, he was not good last night. 3 of 14 from the field, 2 for 11 from 3. He finished with 10 points. Jaren Jackson had a good game. He finished with 22 points. Scottie Pippen Jr. finished with 28. And then for the Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he finished with 31 points. Chet Holmgren finished with 24. Jalen Williams finished with 26. Caruso had 10 off the bench. Isaiah Joe had 10 off the bench as well. And the Thunder get the win. So, yeah, they're in the driver's seat. They're going to move on. They're going to move on. We knew this, but yeah, that was a disappointing game. Again, didn't really get to watch a ton of it because obviously it was focused on the draft. But yeah, I mean the fact that the Grizzlies lost that was the dagger. And then the final game from last night, you had the Clippers and the Nuggets, which has kind of been a back and forth series so far. The first two games have both been very competitive. Last night, not so much. The Clippers ended up winning 117-83. Jokic finished with a triple-double. Jamal Murray had 23 points. But yeah, the Clippers, they shot 46% from three. The Nuggets shot 27% from three. The Clippers almost shot 50% from the field. Nuggets 40%. They were out-rebounded last night by the Clippers. The Nuggets were. And fast break points, 13-3. Points off of turnovers, Clippers had 16. Nuggets had 9. They turned the ball over 16 times. Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. Kawhi had a double-double, 21 points, 11 rebounds. Zubats had 19. Norman Powell had 20. Harden had 20. Nicholas Batum had 12 off the bench. But yeah, that was a non-competitive game. The first quarter, the Clippers were finished that they were up 35-28. But yeah, they outscored the Nuggets 30-19 in the second, 27-13 in the fourth. So yeah, that was not good. And I saw a clip of Jokic, very upset on the sidelines, going over some stuff. So yeah, Nuggets are gonna have to turn it around. But yeah, that was a very discouraging performance by Denver last night. So we'll see what happens in Game 4. But Clippers have control of that series right now, up 2-1. And then the games tonight, Celtics and the Magic. I don't believe. What is the status of Jason Tatum? So I'm looking right now. So actually, Drew Holiday was added to the injury report, right hamstring injury. I don't know what the status of Jason Tatum is. Well, I do see Joe Mazzulla said he has a severe bone bruise, so that's not a good sign. So I guess maybe he's he's doubtful for Game 3. So I guess he's not playing, and Drew Holiday's also iffy. And then, of course, Chris Stapps, got elbowed in the face. So yeah, the Celtics are kind of shorthanded. But even with that being said, I mean, I still think they're winning the series. They're too deep of a team. I think they're going to find a way. Maybe the Magic steal a game tonight. But I think the Celtics, they're going to ultimately win this series and move on, and they'll get these guys back. The Pacers and the Bucks. This is a big game. The Bucks, back at home. Damian Lillard is back. They lost Game 2. This series has been getting a little chippy. With the stuff going on between Tyrese Halliburton and Damian Lillard. I like the Bucks to win tonight. I'm going to say the Bucks win tonight. Get themselves back on track. They're 5.5-point favorites, but if they go down 0-3, yeah, the series is definitely over. I don't think the series is over. I did pick the Pacers to win, but I think this is still going to be a competitive series. And then we got the Lakers and the Timberwolves tonight. Timberwolves are 3-point favorites. I could definitely see them winning. I can definitely see them winning tonight. After a disappointing performance in Game 2. This is another series that I think could go back. That is going to go back and forth. I'll still take the Lakers to win tonight. All right, so that is those are my predictions for tonight. I think the Celtics find a way to get a win as well. Let me know what you guys think about the games from last night, about the games tonight. What do you see happening? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our final break ever here on the GSMC Sports Network. And when we come back, I'll give you some NFL predictions for this upcoming season, as well as taking a look back at some of the biggest moments in sports that have happened since I started doing shows for the GSMC Sports Network. So a little fun segment to conclude my time as a host here. So for one final time today, one final time ever, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final segment here as the host, we are going to do some predictions and kind of take a look back at some of the biggest moments in sports, at least off the top of my head, that I could think of since I started doing shows for the GSMC Sports Network. So I guess we'll go back. We'll take a look back. So I started back in the fall of 2023. So, well, I guess we'll get this out of the way because I know, some people are going to roll their eyes. The Chiefs repeated. The Chiefs repeated. That was something that has not happened since the Patriots did it back in the early 2000s. They won in overtime over the 49ers. That was a very good Super Bowl. I mean, got off to a slow start, but, it had a strong finish. And the Chiefs were able to repeat. Now, what happened, last year, they were trying to become the first team ever in the Super Bowl era to three-peat, and the Eagles stopped them. The Eagles had a Super Bowl performance for the ages defensively. It was a complete team win, just pure dominance. And that was backed by, signing Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley was a home run signing for the Eagles. We're going to jump around a little bit because there's definitely a lot, but signing Saquon Barkley really put the Eagles over the top. And I've brought this up. Jalen Hurts says that soundbite of him saying it to Saquon. Saquon really did put them over the top. And, you knew when he signed with the Eagles that he was going to do really well. And, he came 100 yards short of breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record, and maybe he has a chance to do it next year. But he was unbelievable. I mean, it was the year of the running back in 2024. I thought my dog was about to break in. But anyways, yeah, it was the year of the running back. Saquon, I mean, Derrick Henry had a really good year with the Ravens. But yeah, it was a the Eagles got a good one in Saquon, and they had a really good team, and they're going to be very good for years to come. But yeah, so there's that. Also, taking a look at some of the other sports. I mean, we had, I was hosting when Shohei Ohtani signed. I believe I was doing the baseball podcast at the time. But Shohei Ohtani signs the contract with the Dodgers. Oh, yeah. I was. I don't know why I was thinking, the year before. But, yeah, he signed a huge contract with the Dodgers, the biggest contract, in MLB history at the time. And, he went on and, had the 50-50 season, 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases. He's quite a player. And we'll see what happens when he returns to the pitcher's mound at some point. But yeah, heck of a player. Won NL MVP last year. We'll see what happens this year. But Juan Soto, got to throw him in there. Got traded to the Yankees. Had an unbelievable year. Had his best season as a pro, batting in front of Aaron Judge, who had another MVP season last year, 58 home runs. Batting over 300. Obviously, didn't end the way myself and other Yankee fans were hoping for, but, it was another great year out of him, and he's gotten off to a great start this year. I mean, he's batting .411 right now, and we're almost into May. And the complete opposite of the April he got off to last year. But, yeah, and then Juan Soto, got traded to the Yankees, had a very good year, helped the Yankees get to a World Series. He hit that big home run, to send them to the World Series, which I'll never forget, and I'm always going to appreciate that. I'm in the minority when it comes to the Juan Soto dislike by Yankee fans, although I'm not happy about it. Look, he wasn't a Yankee. He was traded to the Yankees, and, when it came down to business, he was all business. And, I didn't feel betrayed by him going to, yes, maybe he had gone to another team that wasn't the Mets or the Red Sox if it came down to the Red Sox. But it is what it is. It is what it is. But, he ends up signing this $750 million contract, which was which is now the largest in MLB history. And yeah, hasn't gotten off to the best start, but he's going to figure it out. He'll figure it out. When looking at basketball, I mean, we've seen it, since I started, we've had a couple of, NBA champions. The Celtics won last year, and they could win this year. The Luka trade, that's one of the biggest sports moments in general, because it was just, how does that happen? How does that happen? And Nico Harrison is going to continue to have to answer questions about it. We'll see what kind of run the Lakers go on in these playoffs, but yeah, that's always going to be a head scratcher. Why did they do it? They'll tell you why, but you still can't accept it. Yeah, that was that is one of the biggest sports moments, since we started. Again, we'll see what happens, what the Lakers do here. Some disappointing teams in the NBA. The Suns, not living up to the hype, going through 3 head coaches in 3 years. Kevin Durant's probably going to get traded. Now, unfortunately, we'll get into, what I'm going to be doing post GSMC as we wrap up here. But, where's Kevin Durant going to end up? Where's he going to get traded? We'll see. We'll see if maybe they end up, the Suns end up trading Devin Booker as well, which I don't think they should, but maybe they do. The way these playoffs are going right now, the Thunder are really good. They're the 1 seed for a reason in the Western Conference. And then, I think it could be it's going to be either the Cavs or the Celtics, unless somebody else surprises us. I think the Pacers are going to give these teams problems. But, yeah, I think it might be chalked in the NBA Finals. But you know what? If you get a Celtics-Thunder Finals or you get a Celtics-Cavs Finals, Celtics-Thunder is probably what most people are going to prefer. But, I said Lakers-Celtics because I think that would be – I think Thunder-Celtics would be great, but Lakers-Celtics, the history, and LeBron James back in the finals with Luka, sign me up for that, but we'll see. But I'm trying to think of anything else. Well, also look at college, college basketball. Florida, winning the national championship. Even looking at women's college basketball, Caitlin Clark, what she's brought to the table now. Then being drafted by the Fever. We didn't really get a chance to oh wow. Man, Cameron really started to act up here towards the end. But we knew this was going to happen. This is always going to happen. I think it's stopping. Okay. But yeah, Caitlin Clark is really bursting onto the scene. And we'll see what happens now in year 2. Did get off to a rough start in her rookie campaign, but she settled in. She's going to be a great player. But yeah, that was a big deal. The rivalry between her and Angel Reese, that's going to continue that has continued into the WNBA. So, we talked about that. Alex Ovechkin surpassing Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, didn't expect that. I know we didn't really talk about it, but we'll get into. I'll bring it up now just to cover hockey. But yeah, that's all. That's really all I could think of right now. There's definitely a lot more. I just haven't really. We could go on for hours, but we only have so much time. Kind of gone a little past my end time here, but I'll give you some NFL predictions. So this one, is it really that bold? I don't know if it's really that bold, but the Chiefs will not make it to the AFC Championship game this upcoming season. They're due. They're due to miss out on the AFC Championship game. Now, I'll come back to this, in January when they're playing in Arrowhead to go to the Super Bowl and say, yeah, what was I thinking? But at some point, it's got to happen, right? I think this is the year. I think this is the year. Will Aaron Rodgers sign with the team? I'm going to say this. I think Aaron Rodgers signs with the team, but it's not going to be the Steelers. And I'm not going to say when he's going to sign, but at some point he will sign with the team. He will. But I don't know when. And I don't know who. So it could happen 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. No. But we'll see. Trying to think of anything else. I was about to say quarterback will not win MVP, but I feel like that's not that bold. It should have been this year, and then actually no, it shouldn't have been this past year. It should have been last year. I was trying to think team that'll miss the. Let me think of a team that'll miss the playoffs. Is there any team that I would say miss the playoffs that would be a little bold? I'm going to say the Bears make the playoffs. Bears make the playoffs in 2025. But someone's got to miss out. I don't think we're going to see 2 14-win teams again. I don't know. I almost feel like saying the Packers are going to miss the playoffs. But I don't know if I could do that. We'll see, though. We'll see. But yeah, just a couple of predictions there. But we have reached the end. It has been quite a ride. It's gone very fast. You know, I've said that. I said that in our production meeting, too, as I was saying goodbye to everybody. But it's gone very fast. You know, I've appreciated every moment of it. You know, obviously this is something that I want to do as a career, and I'm going to continue to do that, which is why I will be trying to consistently post content on my own personal YouTube channel, and that's simply just looking up my name, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and you'll find it. And I have videos on there of myself doing shows with my my friend from school. But yeah, I'm gonna try to do produce content on there more often. Even if it's not with someone, it's going to still be with myself. It might not be hour-long shows like you're accustomed to see me doing here, and that might happen from time to time. But depending on, you know, if there's a lot of news to cover. But, you know, I definitely want to focus on some of my strengths, you know, talking about, you know, my own personal teams that my teams that I root for, things like that. But, you know, continuing to cover things nationally, you know, you don't want to lose that. But that's kind of, you know, what my way of thinking is. So that's going to happen soon. But there's a lot of stuff that I want to set up and make it so it's not, you know, doesn't look like it's basic. But, you know, I'll still be using the same equipment I'm using here. So, you know, if my camera glitches out, you know, you'll still be seeing that. But, yeah, I've appreciated every moment doing this. You know, I've met a lot of great people through this, and I'm going to continue to support, you know, everyone that is doing shows here. Everybody's doing a good job. You know, I thank the great people that run GSMC for giving me this opportunity. You know, this isn't my first time being with GSMC. You know, I was an intern with them. So they helped me. They were a big part in me getting through college. So, and, you know, just because, you know, I'm away does not mean, you know, you don't see me pop up here or there, you know, if I make a guest appearance, you know, but I'll still be around. I'm still going to be making content. It'll just be independently. But, yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. I've appreciated the comments. Anthony, who's always in the chat lately, I appreciate your comments, your support. I appreciate everybody's support, really. All the good comments, the bad comments that I've received, you know, I always address. When I do address them, I address them in the politest way possible. Kill them with kindness. That's how I look at it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So you know, make sure to check out all the other shows. Continue to support the shows. I will continue doing that as well. Wherever you get your podcast when you're on the go, make sure to check us out on there as well. And that's it. So for one final time, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.